Boy, does it sound like the Defenders are coming back. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about what Daredevil Born Again showrunner Dario Scartapane had to say about the Defenders, Hell's Kitchen, and the MCU. If you're looking forward to the return of some old characters, you should be really excited. Don't click away, we're going to dive in. Well, quite honestly, ever since Daredevil Born Again kicked off, the talk has been the old Netflix series. Now, whether you love them or hate them, they really do carry a level of nostalgia that's been pretty amazing considering some of the reactions back when they first came out. Now, once we found out Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio were set to return, people started to assume everybody was coming back. But based on what we've heard, it wasn't until the reboot of the production halfway through that it really started to align with the old Netflix project. As a matter of fact, from what we heard from Vincent D'Onofrio, it was really a completely separate thing. And it sounds like Marvel listened to the fans, and that might be happening again. Now, Season 1 left us with a bit of a cliffhanger, and Daredevil setting out to build an army. And that's something we've talked about quite a few times on this channel. Now, obviously, the laundry list of characters is pretty big. But now the showrunner himself, Dario Scartapane, has chimed in on the potential return of the Defenders. If you remember correctly, those old Netflix series basically set up one season of the Defenders, and for me it was probably one of the highlights of the whole Netflix run. Now, Scartapane was asked about their potential return, and he said, quote, "Without giving too much away, when you're working in what I would call the Hell's Kitchen corner of the MCU, those iconic characters are always in your mind. The thing is that, and this is kind of hard, I'm trying to thread a needle here. You want to bring in people and relationships and past figures in Matt's life because they help the story, particularly in terms of the story where Fisk has taken over the city, and there is a resistance and a rebellion, so to speak, rising. So there's going to be people, vigilantes, superheroes, that are involved in that. There has to be because this is happening in their city. That said, you want to create a completely organic story for that. So who comes in and why has to be beyond anything earned. So the easiest answer to your question is yes, those characters that you just listed off are absolutely in my head and everybody's head as we're working. How that manifests itself is both really tricky writing-wise and pretty closely guarded secret at this point. So I'm intentionally being cagey, but I'm also saying hell yeah in terms of something worth thinking about. Now, Dario really did pull the curtain back here and kind of give us an idea of what's going on. This return of these characters is going to have to be organic to the story and impact their lives. And this to me does give some suggestions on which characters could return. Honestly, right out of the gate at the top of the list of the old Defenders characters is Luke Cage. The social commentary aspect of the character in the series plays directly into what Fisk is doing. And quite honestly, when it comes to the New York PD, disproportional application of force has been pretty apparent to people in the real world, and I am absolutely sure that manifests in the series. This also suggests that some of the supporting characters from that show, like Misty Knight, could be part of it, and we saw Misty Knight building a relationship with Colleen Wing, who the actress who plays the character, Jessica Henwick, has made it super clear she would love to come back. Now, I also noticed in the statement it leaves exits for some characters. Probably at the top of the list of characters it might not affect is Iron Fist. Finn Jones's portrayal of the character was not very well received, and even though he's getting a lot of love now for a return, I think that's really built from nostalgia and not how he did in the role. And it seems like Scartapane is basically leaving the door open to cherry pick whatever characters work for the story, but not be forced to take ones that don't really work. Now, another character I think this definitely impacts also is Jessica Jones. Jessica was all over the news in all 3 seasons of her show and probably had more interactions with the police than any of the other Defenders characters. She was in and out of interrogation rooms almost every other episode, and that exposure makes her pretty high profile to the New York PD and the Vigilante Task Force. She also is not what I would call a flamboyant character, and since she runs a detective agency, she's really easy to find, so all of these things really do make it so that Jessica will also most likely be one of these characters, but at this point, who knows? Now, we've talked multiple times about Spider-Man potentially being one of them. We just did a video yesterday about this possibility, and dealing with Sony to make that happen, it's a pretty high wall. But we also want to look at some other Marvel characters that have been introduced in the MCU in New York City. Now, I don't consider Swordsman a hero, but he's definitely somebody that's been affected by Fisk and falls into the category of mass vigilante. There's also the possibilities of Kamala Khan, another very high-profile character in New York. And then, quite honestly, Marvel has a library of characters that have yet to manifest on TV that could find their way into the series, and this sort of rebellion would serve as a great introduction for those characters. Now, Scartapane did not confirm anything here, but quite honestly, he's making it super clear they're doing this, right? And it's going to be a little while before we find out details. I suspect this will be the closest held card to the chest, and since they seem to have abandoned the streets of New York at this point, I don't think we're going to get set pictures of Luke Cage, Jessica, or any of these other characters team up with Daredevil during Season 2 quite yet. Marvel Studios seems to have this pretty tuned in. I'm super excited about where they're going, and I do honestly think they are listening to fans, and there's no way they don't bring more of the Defenders back than anybody's expecting, and they're probably going to lean into as much fan service as they possibly can give us. The ultimate question is, can they pull off Spider-Man? And that's the big, and for that, we're going to have to wait and see. Now, before you take off, though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily videos, and we want to be your place for all the Marvel and DC news, but we're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently, so you're really in the know.